to... LOL, I have the wrong window open. There we go. We're live now. You can actually see us. Hello, everybody. My
Hey.
name is Avacyn, or Stephanie, and with me is Adam Koebel. Hey, Adam.
Hey, everybody.
What are we doing today?
Well, I've managed to sucker you into doing all the hard work, so I'm just going to talk and look pretty, and you're going to show everybody how Roll20 works.
Awesome.
So today, what we wanted to do is just take a short session to sit down with everybody and go over kind of the stuff that one would need to do to prepare oneself for running a campaign in Roll20. So we're going to go over things like creating your campaign in Roll20, putting together all the details, creating some handouts and looking at characters, and then creating some of the background stuff that we want to do. So adding in some maps, and then at the end we want to talk a little bit about sort of general Q&A stuff, like if you have questions about Apocalypse World or about getting it set up in Roll20 or anything about the campaign that we're going to be doing kind of going forward, then we'll have time for that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so just something kind of short and informal, get everybody kind of up to speed with what we're going to be doing.
cool. So there's going to be a little bit of time here for a couple minutes where you won't be able to see us, and that's just while I'm showing you how to create the stuff within Roll20. And we'll go ahead and jump right into that because that's the first step to starting a new campaign, right?
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, what we did in prep for the game, obviously some of the stuff that happens before the Roll20 piece was I sat down with the players over email, and we talked a little bit about some of the games that we might want to play together, things that we thought would be fun for the audience on the stream, and we narrowed in on Apocalypse World, which is good because Apocalypse World is one of the systems that has character sheets created for it already in Roll20, so we were spared having to do that work, which was nice. So what we need to do now is just get all that infrastructure set up in the app to prepare for the game. So the first thing that we need to do is actually create that campaign. So
cool.
Let's take a look at that, shall we?
Yes, and I am on the Start New Campaign page right now, and I'm going to name it. I'll just name it Apocalypse World. Makes it easier.
Sounds good.
Oh, I forgot to tweet that we were live. Social media manager, sorry. Priorities. We're live, everybody. All right. That's a great picture. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Okay, Apocalypse World. I'm going to tag it also with Apocalypse World. Why do we use tags? Oh, that was a bad tag.
So the tags in the system are primarily for finding games. So if you're building a game yourself and you're not as lucky as we are to have tons of people clamoring to play with you, and you're looking to get some attention for your game, you're looking at doing the looking for a group system, tags can help people understand the kinds of content that might go into your game. So you can tag it with stuff like the system that you're using, in case that's not clear from the name, but you can also tag it with some other information about your campaign that might be of use. So for example, if you're expecting the campaign to have mature themes, that's something you can tag. If you have a setting in mind, you can use the tag there for that. So if we were doing, say, a like Mad Max style game, we could tag it with, cars and mutants and deserts, water shortage. So that way, if somebody isn't sure what kind of game that they're looking for, but they know, I want to do a game that involves mutants, they could do a search, and the tag is going to help you find that. This actually reminds me a lot of my old job working in like digital marketing and filling in tags for websites. And you want to keep in mind that like the tags, they're important, but you don't want to overload them. Like stuffing a campaign with too many tags is going to be confusing for people. And just stick to a few things that you think are important to your game, and it'll help you attract folks. Now, we don't need to do a lot of tagging simply because we have we have our cast already, so we're ready to go.
So next thing we want to do is make sure, it is optional, but we actually have a ton of character sheets on Roll20. These are all community made and maintained. So if you ever have any problems with any of your character sheets, we have a forum for that. Go in and start a thread, and people will find out, or the creators can help you with any issues. But we actually have an Apocalypse World character sheet built in that we're going to use. And you get a nice little preview. You can see here who the author is. It includes his Twitter. So there you go, a way to contact the person if you need to. And then a little note here, including a link to their issue tracker. So that's awesome. So all this stuff is included, but yes, you can also use the forums. That's the... Go ahead.
So we'll be using Ryan's character sheets for this one, Ryan Sig.
Yes.
And if you're looking through the list and you don't find the game that you want to play, that's okay. The character sheet system in the app is pretty customizable, and you can add in your own. And there's tutorials for creating your own character sheets as well. Plus, you can always check, like Avacyn said, on the forums to see if there's someone working on the game that you want to make.
Definitely. And actually, with the customization stuff, I actually, for Misclicks, just did a custom sheet, and I used the first edition Dungeons and Dragons sheet for second edition because we liked some of the elements for it, and we were able to use the custom sheet option, which you can see up here, and just copy and paste some of that HTML and CSS code. And like Adam said, all those kind of tutorials can be found online. So that's actually all there is for starting a new campaign. So I'm going to go ahead and click the I'm Ready Create Campaign button, and it's going to take us right into a new table, or a new campaign. And we're going to exit here in a second, but I'm going to show a couple settings really quick before we do that, because we want to look at the campaign details first before we start actually building the table. So now that we're in, I'm going to my settings, which is this upper right hand little click wheel, and you're going to see a bunch of options. There's places to put in macros. You can change your display name. You can enable 3D dice, which I love to do. You can use pop-outs. Tell the system what you want to enable. I like to change the video size to large so you can all see our faces better, and I'll invite Adam to this campaign in a minute and you'll be able to see us. The reason you can't see me now is because I'm actually in another campaign, which we saw earlier. And then, yeah, I'm going to exit, and then I'll be able to invite everybody. So you can see our campaign right here at the top of my page. I'm going to click on this View Details button, and that's going to take us into all these fun little options. So the first thing I'm going to do is invite my players. So I'll send that to you here, Adam and Cato. And we're going to exit this game. Goodbye, Richard. See you later. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
All right, we're back. Cool. So I've got the View Details page open on a different tab now, so we can hear and see it again. So I'm looking in the back end on the details page.
Yeah, so for folks that are watching now, the screen that you're looking at with the campaign itself and the video links along the bottom, this is what we're going to be using for the live campaign for Apocalypse World. So you'll be able to see the entire sort of play space that we're going to be using, which is really important because if you've played Apocalypse World before, you know that a big part of the sort of interaction between the players and the setting is about creating maps. So I'm lucky enough to have both Andrew Gillis and John Harper are practiced illustrators, and they've promised me that they're going to be all over drawing maps in our campaign. So we wanted to give the audience as much space as possible to kind of take a look at that. Now, we have a lot of options around how we want to display this interface, whether we want to look at it as hexes or as a grid, whether we want it to be blank, whether we want to drop in some background images, and I'm going to be using a mix of those options. If you look up in the top right corner, you can see there's a little drop down. There's a little blue tag there, and that tag will allow us to pull down the interface for the different play spaces that we have. So you can kind of think of these as like desktops on your computer or separate spaces that you have to lay out different nodes. Now, what's cool about this is that you can create these different pages to have different levels of visibility. There's a little red bookmark there that'll allow you to pull your player's view into each one. So what I can do is set up, I can set up a map for the general area. I can set up a closer map for a village. I could set up a map for a particular building or an installation that I want them to explore. And they won't be able to see any of those until I go into this drop down and I grab the little ribbon and pull them into that map. So it allows us to create basically as many of these as we need, and I can keep my own notes on one of them if I want to. And so what'll end up happening is that by the end of the campaign, we're going to have a whole bunch of these different layouts, and we'll be able to go back and forth between them and edit them as we go. I actually find this to be one of the ways in which playing role-playing games online is a lot kind of easier than playing at a tabletop, because in a tabletop, I've got to manage a bunch of physical objects for this stuff, and it's hard to show. You got one little 8 by 10 or whatever piece of paper, and you've got a map on it, and you want to share it and show it to everybody and have everybody editing it together. It can be really hard because, you know, it's a physical thing. You have to pass it around. And if you've got, you know, 4 people at the table all trying to draw on the map at once, you know, it can be difficult. So this way, it takes up everyone's full space. I have total control over what they're viewing, and they're going to be able to take a look at it and to draw on that map. Kind of however they want. Now, we're not obviously going to be using the map in the same way that you would see in a like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, in that I'm not tracking, you know, 5-foot squares with Apocalypse World, but it is really important to be able to have a shared sort of visualized space that the players can all look at and get a reference. They can see, you know, what are we doing here? You know, how do things relate to each other? And it really helps clear up that kind of awkward, like, you know, if I'm here and he's 10 feet away, then how far do I have to go?
Yeah.
And like, what's in the way, you know, because
Absolutely.
often, you know, with role playing in general, like it doesn't matter if you're using, you're playing Pathfinder or you're playing Fiasco, anywhere along the spectrum, you're creating a shared imaginary space together, right? And because people perceive things differently, and you're really relying on your description and everyone else's description of things, that fictional space can get a little confused if everybody's not on the same page. So even just having a little map to work with where you can say, okay, this character is here, these other characters are here, here's some stuff in the way, then you can kind of convert that into the image that you've got in your head. It can be really useful. So I really like sort of doodling and drawing stuff and making little maps as I go. So we're going to be using this page space pretty dramatically, I think, throughout the game. And one thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, the other way that I like to use this, and if you've watched me, I've started to do some of this stuff on Swan Song and on Mirror Shades. I really like to have just a general kind of like background image or series of background images to roll on, sort of like how you have a play mat for a lot of like CCGs. It's nice to create just this sort of flat space where you can play. And the 3D dice, they're really useful too, in that you can physically see that roll happen as you play. So let's go over just adding some art to the background.
Well,
before the stream, I sent Avacyn some background images that I thought we could use for the game.
Yes. So I skipped ahead and was doing it while you were talking, but if I'm going to walk through, I'll walk through again. So here we are in the main chat window. I'm going to pop one tab over to the art library. There's a couple ways to do this, but the easiest thing to do here, click on art library, click on this star. Here's my library. You can see I have some little tokens that I made for misclicks. You can see my purchases, and then if I click upload, this is where I'm going to drag and drop in. You can choose a file. I'm going to just drag it in because I have it over, and I decided I wanted to do the stream, and our uploader will take care of that for you. And now it's in my library, and I can actually just drag it right in to figure out where it went. There it is, off to the side. I gotta make it much, much bigger, obviously. There we go. My mouse is a little crazy because of the stream, so forgive me. There we go. Whoop. There we go. Beautiful.
Yeah, and so what you can use these for is like I'm going to be using like these images that I sent over just as sort of thematic backgrounds. I'm a big fan of concept art as a way to set the stage for a role playing game. Often, what I'll
Oh.
do before I play a game is I'll go just dig around on the internet looking for.
Somebody just made a very good point. I dragged it onto the wrong layer.
So yeah,
New
do you want to
streamer.
talk? You want to talk about
Yes.
the layers?
So yes,
Okay.
I did drag it onto the token layer, which is not the correct layer. So I will start over and drag it onto the map layer and the background layer. The difference being, you. Can you talk about that, Adam, while I do it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. So
I'm
the yeah
laughing at myself.
the map layer is where you place objects that you want to draw on top of. So this would be like if you have a dungeon map and you want to draw on top of it to show where tokens are, for example, or you want to draw lines between stuff. It basically sets the layer up as your background. And you draw on top of it. That's the difference. The object layer is where you place the actual tokens maps itself. So for us, we probably won't be doing a lot of drawing on top of this stuff because it's not a map. It's just a piece of concept art. So I'm going to be creating these layers to show off things like like general sort of ambiance for the game. Now, you can use it for dropping in pretty much any kind of art if you want to have a bunch of different character portraits on here. That kind of stuff. But for me, like a big part of the research for a game, like I was mentioning before, is that I'm going to go and do a Google search. Once we've talked about the campaign setting, what I wanted to do was go through and find a bunch of concept art. Again, like if you remember, if you've seen any other campaigns that I've done, the first thing I did for Swan Song was spend a little while digging around, creating a Dropbox shared folder for my players and put all this concept art in. But with Roll20, I can just add that in as different page layers so that as we explore concepts and we explore different parts of the world, I can say, okay, you see a rocky stream, and in the background there's a ruined building, and it kind of looks like this, and I can pop up this layer and show them. It's also useful for highlighting specific stuff too. So if I want to like click around and say, instead of saying, well, yeah, you can kind of see it, it's like up above the stream and a bit to the right in the background there, I can just click and highlight that stuff for my players. So yeah, this is going to be a thing that we'll be adding to our campaign as we go along.
Awesome. And the chat is pointing out, I, in my nervousness, also forgot that I could have just right-clicked the image and changed the layer without having to delete and start over. But I didn't because I got nervous. So thank you, chat. You're totally right. So this is my first time displaying our beautiful program live, so forgive me. But yeah.
Yeah. So this again, like it'll be fun to watch as we go along through the campaign and see this stuff build up over time, right? Like, I mean, if you've GM'd a game for very long, whether it's 10 sessions or 20 sessions or 100 sessions, you know that your little GM notebook gets full of all kinds of weird stuff. Like, for me, like my notebook is just like jam packed with my chicken scratch and like random drawings, and I've like taped printouts and stuff into it. And what's cool is that between the various pages in Roll20 and with the journal and the character journals, I'm gonna be able to transfer a lot of that work straight into Roll20, which means if it's not in physical form, I'm gonna be able to share it with all y'all. So between sessions of the game, I'm going to be doing more stuff like this where I sit down. Then I talk about how I'm using Roll20 to prep for sessions, which I know is something that a lot of would-be GMs are really curious about, right? Like, how do I do this? What's the secret sauce that goes into making the campaign? And like I talked about in the last sit down that we did, that stuff's really important to me. Like, I want you to be able to replicate this pretty closely, and so that'll be I think that'll be really fun, transferring all those notes in and being able to handle that stuff. Do we want to take a look at the character section, the handouts?
Definitely. I was going to say,
Speaking
this
of
is,
which.
speaking of handouts, let's definitely transfer over. So we wanted to just kind of show you how to create a character, how to create a handout. Since Adam was just talking about handouts, I'll go ahead and do that one first because it's easy. I popped over to our third tab here, which is Journal. In the journal, you can go ahead and add a handout. It pops up automatically called a mysterious note. This particular one that we're going to add is actually going to be called Basic Moves because we're playing Apocalypse World and we want to have these basic moves available for the players.
Yeah, and because we have because we have as much work being done in Roll20 as we do, I'd really like to try to keep everybody focused on like one window and not have to, alt tab between a PDF and this. And like one thing that I run into as a problem with games sometimes is that we're not all interacting with the same piece of technology, right? Like in Swansong alone, some of the characters are using form-fillable, some of the players are using form-fillable PDFs for their character sheets. A couple have printed them and are just like writing on a piece of paper, which, as you can imagine, as a GM, when I need an update to a character is kind of annoying. So what I've done is I've gone in to the Apocalypse World handouts, and I just cut out the player-facing stuff. So I took the basic moves and the expanded moves, and I created just an image for those. And I'm going to add them to our campaign as handouts, so that when I say, okay, you guys need to refer to the basic moves, nobody has to leave Roll20 to do that. They can just pull it out on top of what they're already doing. Now, with these handouts, you can set them to only be visible to certain players or to everybody. Obviously, with these ones, we want to do them for everyone because there's no sense in keeping the basic moves from anybody. But if you're using something specific, like let's say a particular character found a note that I didn't want to share with everybody else, I could add that note as a handout. And I could say, okay, we're going to just share this with John's character. And if John's character wanted to share that with Austin or Andrew or Avacyn, he could, and he'd just let me know, and I can add them to the list. So it's a way to keep information secret. And one thing that I think is interesting with, again, like Roll20 over like a tabletop environment is that you can do those kinds of things. You can have secret roles, you can have secret information that only applies to some players in a way that is even like less obvious than you would be at the table. Because at the table, if you're like, actually, Avacyn, okay, you're gonna go see that NPC. Let's go talk in the other room. Mm-hmm. This way, I can just say, we can have people make secret roles, and I can pass out information, and and it keeps it feeling a little bit like more immersive. You're not having to break character and be like, well, I know you went to talk to that guy, or I know you found that note. But my character doesn't, and you end up in that kind of headbutting position.
Definitely. So for this case, like Adam said, I made it available to all of our players, which is just me and Adam. And I also made it only editable by him. So that way, obviously, players can come in and change anything. So here's another place where you can add tags. This is just another system that we have similar. Just another organizational system. We also have folders, which I can show.
The tags can be super useful. They're going to be useful later on when I've got like 50 different handouts, and I can't remember where they came from or what I named them. So this way I can tag them with like the NPC that gave it to them, or the location where they found it, or whatever, and then that'll help me dig it up.
Definitely. So we have another drag and drop option here. You can choose a file. I'm going to move our basic moves over from my computer because I already have it open. And a place to add notes. So if Adam, again, wanted to kind of just remind himself or the person it's visible to of anything, he could add that in the bottom. So I'm going to save. And we have our basic moves here, visible on the screen. Made it huge for everyone. You can see it zooms out nicely. Click away to make it smaller.
Yeah, so this way we'll be able to use this stuff for reference in game, and this is something that commonly comes up. It's easy with Apocalypse World, and this is part of why we chose it. In that all the player-facing rules are either on your character sheet or in this particular handout in either the basic moves or the peripheral moves. But if you're playing a game where there's a lot more mechanical stuff you want to share with your players, making handouts for that stuff can be really useful. Like I know in West Marches, Stephen, hi Stephen, who's the GM for that campaign, he's got a handout that is basics of like 5th edition D&D, and it's not an official handout as far as I know, but it's something that a player has put together to say, like, if you need to know basically any rule in Dungeons and Dragons, here it is. So I would do the same for something like Torchbearer or Burning Wheel, where there's a lot of subsystems that various players need to know, and I might not necessarily share them with all of the players, just the ones that I think need that subsystem. So I could share the sword fighting rules with the character who's playing a duelist, and I could share the wizard spell battle rules with anyone who has spellcasting abilities. So it's a way for you to, as a GM, because if you're already a GM, you kind of have an idea of how this works, but often you're the one responsible for remembering all the rules. And this is a way to kind of offload that responsibility to say, look, I know you're not going to absorb the entire rule book. I don't expect that everyone's going to go and read every single page, but it is important to know just these rules. Here's what you need to know. I don't care if you don't read anything else. This is for you. Be a good player. Read that.
Cool. So before I close this, I'm going to show the buttons at the top. So we have a show to players option, which I am the GM in this campaign right now. I won't be on the show, but this is just kind of this is not a real campaign. We're just showing off. So I could click show to players though, and that would show to everybody. So it should have just popped up on Adam's screen. And then we have the edit button, which you saw I was in earlier. And now we also have the ability to pop out character sheets and handouts and anything that has this box in the corner. I think there's more than just those two. I'm just blanking. But if you click on that pop out button in the corner, you now have the ability to move this around. This is super handy with your character sheet because you'll be able to move it off out of the tabletop window area. So, yeah. Speaking of characters, we can go into that.
I really like the pop outs because I know that I'm going to end up having like a million things to manage all at once when I'm running the game. So being able to just have specific pop out, like I'll often do this with a PDF where I'll take screenshots. I did this last night for a Swan Song where I knew I would need a bunch of different NPCs. So I just opened the PDF and I made like screen grabs of various pages and cut them up in Photoshop. But I don't need to do that anymore because I can just make them handouts. I can say, here's my table of these things. I'm going to need them. Pop it out, throw it on my other monitor because I'm a cool pro with 2 monitors now.
Can't live without it, man. I don't know how you were doing it.
It was trying. It was trying. I'm happy to have caught up with the rest of the world. But yeah, it's cool. The pop-ups are really neat, and it's also, as a GM too, I can pop out other people's character sheets too, and so I can say, like, even just last night, having everybody's character sheet in our Stars Without Number game was so much better than having to ask them for their stats. So this way, I can just tab back and forth between the different characters and say, okay, cool. Well, now I know what everybody's bonuses are to hit. So that's super useful. It keeps you from being stuck in one window and allows you to manage that stuff pretty easily.
I agree.
So let's take a look at characters. Yeah.
So I made a second handout because I want to go ahead and I'm gonna show how our new folders feature works in a minute. But we'll jump ahead. We'll make character. So you can see it just auto-populated a name. This is just a random name generator that we have in the system. I'm going to go ahead and change it to Adam. And I'm going to put it in his journal. And it will only be visible now to him. I obviously can see it because I'm GM in this game. I'm going to make it only editable by him. Also, again, I can still take over. So tags, another place to put those in. This is, again, the same sort of thing as we mentioned before. Tagging is the way tagging is our organizational system before. We just recently added folders at the request of a lot of our community. So we have both because I think people like both, to be honest.
And they serve different functions, right? Like tagging allows you to associate disparate objects that may not need to be foldered together, and foldering allows you to put a bunch of things that are related into one space to work with.
Right.
So for tags, if you're wondering like what you would use those for, you can tag. In this case, like sometimes you might have characters that that belong to different players. Like if you're playing a game like Circle of Hands, where you could put in a tag for who created the character, because in that game you don't always play the same character. So you can put in the creator, you can put in things like what class they are if you want to be able to grab all the fighters from the game. You can put in whether they're a PC or an NPC. You can put in separate PCs and from hirelings. So it really depends on the game. But for this game, the way that I'm going to be adding characters is I'll probably notice that I'll mention whether they're a PC or not. We'll put in what front they're attached to if they're an NPC. And if you don't know what a front is, that's okay. I can do some Apocalypse World prep for all this stuff after the first session. We'll go over all of the technology there. But basically, you can associate characters with all kinds of stuff like location and what's dangerous for them, and however you want to assemble your game. And then with folders, it's another way to sort of subcategorize so the characters with different tags can belong to the same folder. And you really have a lot of options for managing who goes where. And again, like this is one of those situations where playing the game in Roll20 versus on the table, it can be easier organizationally to be able to put all this stuff together, right? To have everybody's character avatar, like their picture, their name, who they belong to, all their tags in one place, so that you're not in that situation where you're building up to a big dramatic moment in the game and you're like, so the door opens and you see, hold on a second. 1 second. I know, no, this isn't that guy's picture. Okay, there's a guy and I can't remember his name. So, it's a way to handle all of that stuff. And for me, like I'm both a little bit organizationally challenged, but also really reliant on categorization and organization to make my games run smoothly. I'm sort of starting to use this tool and build these features into my campaign. So it's super useful for me.
Definitely. So we have the ability to add an avatar as well. I'm going to actually use, let's see. Do you want to be Stephanie Harvey today? You can be Miss Harvey.
Sure.
It's the first one. I think I have one in here too somewhere.
I can do it. I'm a good player.
Everyone. All right. So, you can add an avatar, which I'm not going to do right now because it's going to pull from my computer, and I don't want to search through my computer files on screen. But you can definitely add any picture you want to. Oh wait, I can drag and drop again. Duh. Hee hee. I need to slow down in life. I'll find one. It'll be fun. So yes, adding an avatar, all that's going to do for you is actually change the image on the sidebar there, back in the journal. So you should be able to see Adam's face. There we go, it just changed. And then your token is actually your on-board piece that you're playing with. So you can see I assigned Adam's face to Stephanie's token. I'm going to click save, and we have now Adam's basic character sheet. Bio and info, he could have filled that in where we were before, and then I'm on the character sheet now.
Yeah, and this is cool because the bio and info is information that the player or the GM can edit there, but having that GM notes section is really useful because as you know, you want to be able to put in information that the players don't know about the character. So this is where I would keep, secret stuff about what characters think about each other and what plans I might have for them, notes about how I want to use them in the future. And it's a way to kind of handle that stuff between sessions and at the table. I'm really looking forward to using the avatar items because I really like campaigns where you have a visual representation of the character. Again, because in a tabletop game, there's this striking balance between trying to describe something and over describing it, because everybody as a GM or a player has an idea of what a character might look like in their head, but really you don't ever remember more than like 2 or 3 things about a character, right? Like I can tell you how tall my character is and what their hair and eye color is and what they're wearing every day, but you're probably going to blank out and only think about the most important stuff. But what an avatar picture can allow you to do is go do a Google search, do some research. And again, like I love doing this for games, is like digging around in old, mug shots and various concept art, trying to find a character that looks like someone I like. And I want to use in the game, and we can drop him in as the avatar. And then I can say, okay, so this character is being played by this actor. That's a thing that I regularly do in campaigns. At home, is I'll dig through Google image search for actors that I think would be cool to have play this character. Now, one advantage that we have on playing online and playing kind of out in public on Twitch, like we're going to be doing, is that there's so many people who are like amazingly talented artists that after a few sessions, they're like, I really like this NPC. I'm going to draw a picture of them for you. And then I can just go and say, awesome. Okay, this is a picture of somebody drew this character, bam, drop them in, and now we all know, and we can use that as sort of our official vision of the character. So the basic stuff, the avatar, the bio, all really important for NPCs, but where you get into the more detailed stuff, and I think Avacyn, you're probably a little ahead of me on this one, is the actual character sheet. So for the PCs, obviously, this is where you want to get in and start adding in the information. Now, this screen is going to look obviously a little different depending on whether you're playing Apocalypse World or Dungeon World or whatever. But this is where you can add in detailed information about the character's moves, what class they are, and that kind of thing. Obviously, we'll go over this in a lot more detail when we're building characters for the game.
Yeah, so based on, or speaking of what Adam just said, we're kind of showing you more of the Roll20 setup here. Reading notes from my producer off screen, I'm sorry. We're showing you a lot of the setup here, but we're actually going to be doing a lot of the campaign setup in terms of setting and character creation on screen or live on Twitch for you next week. During our premiere. So don't think you're missing out. Adam's not going to do any of that without you. So.
Yeah, well, that's part of the way that Apocalypse World works, right? Is that it's got some inherent stuff built into it, but it doesn't say like this is what the setting always is. So basically, I imagine the first hour at least of our first session is just going to be sitting down and talking about like, what does our apocalypse look like? What kind of characters would fit into that setting? So we won't be doing any of that stuff, but we'll talk about that when we actually get into the campaign itself.
Cool. I'm resizing tokens for fun. People can follow what I'm doing.
I actually really like that in a live campaign, watching the players when they're not like the focus of the scene, where they're like, I'm just gonna goof around with the map. And thankfully, as a GM, you can have your GM layer that the players can't mess with, so that if Caitlin draws hearts all over everything, select it all and delete it when you need the space back.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I also, while you were kind of chatting, made a couple of folders. And let's see, PC Handouts, I'll call that one. And I'm just going to show off our new folder system and drag and drop some stuff in. So number one, I'm going to delete these tokens from the table. First of all, if you have your tokens assigned, like we did before, you can actually just drag and drop yourself onto the table now. Or, well, not now, you always could, but this is how you can do it. And then if you actually, so the way you do that is you hover over the name and drag it onto the table. Easy game. If you want to actually reorder, you can see where Adam's picture or my picture turned into a little three, I don't know how you call that, but a little symbol. If you actually hover your mouse over that spot, that's how you go ahead and reorder it. So you can see the little blue boxes change, and I'm going to put Adam into the PC folder. I'm going to put myself into the PC folder, and then I'm going to take this basic moves. I'm going to throw it up in this PC handout folder, and you can see that they're in there now because I can minimize them and maximize them, and I can reorder. So
yeah,
everyone loves folders.
I know, I'm such an organization nerd. It's going to be so satisfying in like 6 or 8 weeks when we have like 40 of these things. I'm like, yep, I know where everything is because I'm doing it correctly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think that's all we have for the journal tab. Were we going to just go across the board?
Yeah.
Let's talk about
take a quick look at some of the other features
cool.
we have available, and then we can do some Q&A.
Yeah, so we have a jukebox in Roll20. This is your ability to add music. Search through. If you're broadcasting on Twitch, it's important to make sure you're using stuff that is obviously content, copyright free. There's
Yeah, I
a
mean,
lot.
I was really excited to like use a bunch of Bon Jovi songs for our campaign, but I
you
don't
know,
have the money to license
yeah.
Bon Jovi, so I guess we'll just have to find something else.
So
Thankfully, though, there are a lot of artists who license their work either Creative Commons or open source in that way.
that's right.
So if you do a little bit of digging, it's not too hard to find open license content. It's helpful too if you like reach out to the artist that made it. If you want to use something you're planning on streaming a game, obviously if you're just doing it yourself in Roll20, it's like private use and you're probably fine.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do it live, there's lots of artists that want to get their work out there, and it's really really cool to be able to like explore some of that stuff. And plus, there's always ambient sound too. So
Yes.
everybody's hanging around the campfire. It does add a little bit of that ambience, like turn up the campfire crackling.
Yes. Pro tip: rain sounds like white noise on Twitch, and your audience will hate it, or at least complain about it.
Yeah.
Note.
Yeah. Dark storm clouds brew on the horizon, and suddenly, I don't know, static
Yeah.
cloud.
Yeah. Hilarious.
From an anecdotal perspective, it does take a little bit of work because if you're doing music or ambient sound, it's definitely a thing that takes a little bit of practice to be able to be the game's GM and the game's DJ at the same time. I ran a game where we were using music and sound effects and stuff for a while in real life, and there was a boss. They were fighting some kind of like big fly demon, and I was running the sound of like flies buzzing in the background for the whole fight. And afterwards, the feedback was like that was really gross and weird and creepy. And after about an hour, I started losing my mind, and I was like, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. And like to this day, like that was 2 years ago. To this day, like, anytime we talk about playing music at the table, someone is like, "No flies, please."
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I found that I use one song. I try to pick a good one if I have like one song for all the time and one song for fighting. And usually the fighting song is just something hilarious that I think will make everyone laugh when it's time to go.
I feel like the thing that happens both in live games when you're playing with a soundtrack and in computer RPGs too is the tavern music, the looping 1 minute and 20 seconds of someone playing a shawm and somebody else playing a lute. And you're like, oh God, if they don't change the song, I'm going to murder the entire band and probably everyone else in this village, and we're going to leave.
Play that same song.
Yeah, exactly.
Family Guy joke.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So, jukebox, it's an option.
Jukebox is an option. We have our decks and rollable tables page, but we're not going to go into that right now because that's not part of what we're doing here. And then our My Settings tab. Macros again, like I talked about before. I'm gonna fake exit from this because I don't want to lose Adam, but I'm gonna go back. We're done talking about what we're gonna do in Roll20, but I just wanted to go back to this campaign details page really quick and discuss the top bar here, just to make sure everybody kind of knows. We talked a little bit about it before. You have a discussion forum. This is a page where you can go in and actually post new topics, talk to your players. This is more, like obviously for our game, we're playing with people, we're meeting live, but if Adam needs to leave notes for us, he can definitely do that here. Your journal is going to have the characters listed that you've created within the game. Obviously, I'm the GM, so I can see everybody. If I wanted to list this on our looking for group tool, I could do that. I'm not going to do that because obviously I don't actually want to list this game, but if you push this button, it would create a page, and you can actually, we have a looking for group wiki that kind of goes over all of this. So I'm going to hit my back browser really quick, and then you have your chat archive where you can actually see everything that we've done, which we haven't done anything, so there's nothing there. So cool. You can add a campaign icon if you want to, so we add a spooky image that goes along with whatever we're doing. And filling out these details are more for this looking for group page. If you did ever want to go back in and edit any of that CSS, HTML stuff within the character sheets, that's located in this campaign settings, and there's a lot of other options here. I have a few extra because I'm a dev. So yeah, let's switch back over to our camera screen and talk about Apocalypse World and maybe take a couple questions. We have about 15 minutes.
Yeah, so if anybody in chat has questions about campaign setup, about Apocalypse World, about any of the stuff they've seen us taking a look at now, about the show, whatever you like, we'll happily answer those. And so, just from a like a general perspective, for this stream, like we chose Apocalypse World primarily because it's the system that it uses is very like sort of narrative friendly. There's going to be probably a minimum amount of discussing, how the rules interact with each other. There's not a lot of that kind of dead airspace where you're like, well, let me look up the rules for grappling and swimming while grappling. And so for us, it was about creating a show that was as entertaining as possible, right? And Apocalypse World obviously is a game that has enough stuff in it, enough narrative sort of oomph that it's been made into several other games. And so we figured it was a pretty good jumping off point. There's a fairly high chance we'll play another Apocalypse Engine game. I can think of at least one that I've been nudged towards playing. But there's so many good ones, so we wanted to start here and work out from there.
Cool. So for somebody like me who has only ever played Dungeon World, what do I need to know going in? I don't know how to play Apocalypse World.
So the core stuff is more or less the same. Like it's still 2d6. This game, unlike Dungeon World, just uses d6s. So it's just basically 2d6 plus whatever. It's actually a mechanically like simpler game than Dungeon World. There's less stats to remember. The characters, instead of having strength and dexterity and constitution and intelligence, they have stats like cool, hard, hot, and weird. So they're a little more descriptive of your character. The game itself posits basically that there was an apocalypse, that there was the world before and there's the world now, and the world now is crap compared to the world before. Things have fallen apart. And the game thematically is about scarcity, right? It's about what you don't have enough of, and the communities that form and clash as a result of that. So like in Dungeon World, you end up playing characters who are all kind of driven in the same direction, where you're like, okay, we're a party of adventurers, and we may not all get along, but we're moving in the same direction. Right? We're trying to do these things, and we all sort of belong to the same strata of society. But in Apocalypse World, you can play characters like the Hocus or the Heartholder, who are in charge of a subset of their community. So I might be, for example, the mayor of this like little town that's been built up around the only source of fresh water in 100 miles. So my responsibility as a player then is to manage that, is to like make sure everybody gets water and make sure that nobody steals the town from me. And the other players might be supporting me. So I might have like a bodyguard, someone playing the gunlugger who's there to like be my enforcer, but they might be opposed to me. Someone else might be playing the Hocus, who has their own community of like religious weirdos who are trying to take the sacred watering hole from me. So the game ends up being, I find, in a lot of ways, almost more player focused than Dungeon World is. Now, you can still play characters that are more about the world that they're in and less about the character themselves. So if you're more comfortable being kind of reactionary, characters like the Gunlugger are very much like they see a thing and they react to it. But if you want to get more involved in creating the setting and being in charge of a part of it, there are character classes for that too. Which again, I think makes the game, in part, it's a decision for the audience. It makes the game fun to watch, but also it lets me put the focus on the players and not have to necessarily constantly be goading you into doing things, because you're all going to have your own priorities. It's a little more character focused that way.
Definitely. I'm always really fond of games that have that kind of adaptation for players, because like when Adam and I did Monster Hearts together, and it was important to me that I played the ghost, so that I could literally talk to no one and do whatever I wanted, and it was such a cool like opportunity to have people who wanted to kind of be more creative and boisterous, and like, when people want to play the bard, I'm always like, who are you? Like, I would never play that character in my life.
Yeah, there's some kind of, I'm sure, like Myers-Briggs like test out there like what character class your personality is.
Totally.
And yeah, some people are thieves and some people are bards.
Definitely. So I actually have a couple of good questions that we've gotten from chat. So first one, I don't remember who it's from. Drazla says,
Okay.
are you going to have any viewer interaction similar to how you do it on Swan Song and Mirror Shades?
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about this a little bit in the Q&A with Richard. Fan interaction, audience interaction is really important to me, and just by looking at the rules, I can see a couple of places where I'm going to be opening that stuff up. So in the game, and here's something for you to get familiar with. The way that you earn experience in Apocalypse World is whether you succeed or fail. It's by making moves tied to a particular stat. So your character is connected to the other characters by way of your history with them. And the person with the highest history score with you, they get to pick one of your stats to highlight for the session. So if if we're all playing, we played a couple of sessions, and at the beginning of the session, we decide your character has the highest hex with John's character. You get to pick one of John's stats. You can say, okay, well, in this session, I want to see the tough, aggressive side of your character. So I'm going to highlight your hard. And it's a kind of a carrot approach where you're like, if you do that, if you make rolls using that stat, you're going to get experience. So if you want your character to advance, go out there and be aggressive. Even if your character isn't that type of character. So you're kind of like luring the players into behaving a certain way. You're saying, I want to see you do this in this session. I want to see this side of your character. But normally the MC, the GM of the game, would pick another stat to highlight. But I'm gonna turn that responsibility over, and we'll give it to chat. So
cool.
Yeah, so I'll be posting
That's awesome.
Basically like 4 straw poll links to say, okay, in the upcoming session, do you want to see Andrew's character be, do you want to highlight hard, hot, weird, or cool? And then the audience will get to pick that. So this way, the audience will get to say, we want to see this particular side of the character, and so we're going to incentivize you to play them that way.
How fun.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take a look through the rules, and as play continues and as behavior is emergent, I might turn some of that stuff over additionally to the audience. I'm always willing to do some experimentation around that and see kind of what people like.
Definitely, that sounds great. So we have from Laya D_D, how long will this campaign be? Is it going to be a 2-year arc or 2 months?
Well, there's 2 answers to that question, right? There's in-game and there's real life.
Right.
I like the idea of, especially because Apocalypse World is sort of community focused. I love the idea of being like, okay, we close a session, say we do 3 sessions, we close it, we come back the next day, and I'm like, all right, so it's a year later. I would love to see the game, and the game handles that really well. And I'll go over this in my GM prep when it comes up, but there's a system in the game for writing what are called love letters to your players to say, in the interim, these things have happened in the world. I'd like you to make this move, and depending on the results, pick some of these things that happened. So I could be like, all right, so a year went by, and during that year, you were attacked by a gang of raiders. Gunlugger, you were in charge of defending the hard hold from the raiders. Roll plus hard. On a 10 plus, pick 2 of these things. On a 7-9, pick 1. On a miss, the raid went really bad. Pick 2 people who died, right? And then give them some options and say, we conserved ammo, so we're not running out. Nobody was badly hurt. And you put them in a position to make these choices. So the game does the movement of time really well, and we can jump forward like that. So, who knows? We'll see how the pacing of the game feels. But I'd love to see that change. It'd be really cool to say at the end of the game, all right, well, all these characters are like 10 or 15 years older than they were when we started. How are they different now? What's changed about them? And then as far as real life goes, Apocalypse World is really designed to be played on an arc of sessions, right? Like it's one of those games, and I've talked about this before, the idea of a bounded game versus an unbounded one. Apocalypse World is designed to play 10 to 12 sessions mechanically before the characters become either extant to the things that are threatening them, right? Where they're powerful enough to say, none of these things are a threat to me anymore. And thus, when you get to that point, the game gives you outs to say you transcend the danger and leave the world, right? Where you're like, okay, cool, I'm the Hocus, and I've built my cult up so much that they protect me from anything bad that might happen to me. I'm going to take this move to retire my character to safety, and one night, they just disappear. And the next morning, everyone wakes up and, oh, the Messiah is gone. Where did they go? Cool, I'm going to make a new character. And so you can pick up a new arc that way. Or you can take a move where it allows you to just roll up a new character and play both at once. So, depending on how the game goes and what everybody's scheduling is like, I anticipate we're going to play one full arc. But we'll talk about how long that arc is. And like You want to think about the show that we're doing more in terms of like an HBO than a sort of basic cable. In that
Definitely.
we're gonna run the show as long as it needs to be run, and we're gonna aim for a specific ending. We're gonna say, okay, we can see these things start to come to a close, and in 2 or 3 sessions, then we're gonna end this game and we'll start something new. But the intent is definitely not to just open the campaign and say we'll play forever until it just fizzles out.
Right. Yeah, I think it's always I always prefer those shows. Like I'm a big fan of the BBC, and they do that a lot, where you know it's over in this amount of sessions, and it's really good because it's actually intentionally meant to end.
Yeah.
So I think entertainment wise, that always pays off.
Yeah, for sure.
We have about 5 minutes left, so there's a question that I don't really know if I understand what they're saying, but you probably will.
Okay.
Sour Cookie says, "Will you have a GM turn type thing for creating fronts?"
Yes. So in Apocalypse World, there's a tool for the GM
I was
to
hoping it was
manage.
a question about the game, and I wasn't
Yeah.
just very confused.
Yeah, there's a tool in the game for the GM to manage what are called fronts, and they're essentially sorting your NPCs and the events and the locations in the game into things that threaten the players by way of what scarcity they express. So I might have Dremmer, who is the insane cannibal leader of this raider tribe that lives in the hills. Dremmer is going to fall under the safety scarcity, and I'm going to be able to track how the cannibal cult gets dealt with in the game. And so the game gives you countdowns of severity. So at noon or at 12 a.m., they exist. They're somewhere off in the hills. They're not really a big threat. But as we get back all the way around to 11:59, as we count down to midnight, the threat gets more and more present and more obvious until it gets dealt with or until it overflows and can't be stopped. So all of that stuff, managing all the fronts, talking about the NPCs, I'll definitely be doing a GM turn type of a thing for that. It's going to be interesting because there will probably be like potential spoilery type stuff in there for episodes that haven't happened yet, which I think is kind of a new thing. But it'll be really interesting to be able to let people in on that. And the great thing about Apocalypse World is that the GM doesn't plan outcomes. So even if I've decided, you know what, I want these raiders to overrun the town and kill everybody, I don't get to make that call. I just get to ask the question. I posit the stakes like, what would happen if the raiders attack the town? And then you, the players, you're going to answer that question for me and for the audience, right? Because maybe the gun lugger defends the town, or maybe they're like, actually, never mind, and they just throw their guns down and leave, in which case something totally different will happen.
Definitely.
So there's going to be a GM turn like that where I work in Roll20, and kind of like we did today, I'm going to talk about building fronts and answering questions about the game. And then what'll happen is that stuff will roll into the next session. And I want to do that just as regularly as we do the actual Apocalypse World game. I know that we do some GM stuff for Swansong, but because it's tied to the amount of sessions and the actual in-game fiction, I don't get to do it that often. But with this game, I want to do it on a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every session that we do, there'll be a GM turn to go with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is actually a great place for us to stop, and we can do our short little shout outs. So, Adam, if you want to go ahead and say goodbye first, that way I can throw us out.
Yeah, sure. So if you are not yet aware, if you've just wandered into the video, my name is Adam Koebel. I'm Roll20's in-house GM. We've been talking about the first campaign that I'm going to be running for myself and for Avacyn, for the rest of the team. We're going to be playing Apocalypse World. If you would like to have some more information about me, you want to see me talk about role-playing stuff, or you just want to be able to reach out and contact me, Twitter is the best way to do that. I'm Skinny Ghost on Twitter. And on my not GMing time, I'm a full-time streamer here at twitch.tv. So you can follow me at twitch.tv/Adam Koebel. And I'm going to be playing some Heroes of the Storm in about an hour because I'm addicted to that game.
Surprise!
No.
The entire Roll20 team is addicted to Heroes of the Storm.
I know. You guys got to stop playing Hearthstone.
Me and Richard prefer Hearthstone. All All right, cool. Well, my name is Stephanie, but on Roll20 you guys know me as Avacyn, so I'm going to go by Avacyn during this campaign just to make it a little easier. So from a personal standpoint, if you want to support me, go to my Twitter and follow me. It's m_Avacyn, written down there. I also am the co-founder of Misclicks. Misclicks is a group that supports women in gaming, so you can follow us, MISSCLIKS. But this is all about Roll20 today, so let's focus on that. We are super excited to have Adam on board. It's going to be fun to be producing this Twitch content. And the best way you can actually support us is by heading over to roll20.net and actually just making an account. It's free. Go in, set it up. You'll see tutorial videos when you start. You can go onto our wiki and learn all kinds of things. You can ask questions. I'm generally the one who's going to help you, or Steve, or anybody else on the forums. I mean, there's a lot of people who help you. I'm not taking credit. I'm just saying, if you ever write into the email, that's me. But the cool thing about Roll20 is we have an amazing community that lives in our forums, and it's actually extremely easy to get help. So please go ahead and head over to roll20.net. I'll put the link in the chat right now and make an account. There's also a little button at the bottom you can click on. And if you already have an account, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're happy that you do. Thank you to, who said it? Leah_D, who already has had an account for over a year. So anyway, please visit the website. I should be reading chat. I'm going to make, anyway, thank you for joining us today. We had a lot of fun doing this. The premiere of Roll20 Presents Apocalypse World is next Thursday at this exact time. So you're all ready. You've all joined us for 2 weeks now. We're going to get started. And Adam, why don't you tell us really quick again who our cast is?
Yeah, so the cast obviously will be myself, GMing. Avacyn will be playing. We have Austin Walker, who is a game critic and blogger. John Harper, who is a fairly proliferant game designer. You should look up his stuff. It's great. He just finished a Kickstarter for Blades in the Dark. And Andrew Gillis, who is an old Apocalypse World veteran and someone that I've been gaming with for quite a while. And he's an illustrator in his own right, so expect to see some great art to go along with our game.
We have two people drawing on maps during this game, right?
So excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I thank you for complimenting my hair, the biggest boots. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you next week. If you came in late, we're going to put this on YouTube as soon as it's done converting over. So stay tuned. I'll tweet about it soon. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.